Hi guys, this is Diane here from Design Creative, and just a bit of a disclaimer, I have got really bad hay fever right now, so you're going to have to ignore the sniffling and the horrible sound of my voice at the moment, but yeah, I'm trying to deal with this. Anyway, on top of me dealing with this, Headway 4.0 has come out and it is causing quite a stir within the community right now. I'm noticing I'm getting a few emails from people saying that they're not quite sure how to use it. There's been no documentation out and they are practically stuck. So this tutorial is really, or this video is really just a quick tutorial to show you the ins and outs of Headway. I'm not going to go deep. I'm not going to make it super extensive. I'm just going to make it quite basic, quite simple, and then hopefully leave you to figure out the rest for yourself. So, I have a brand new version of Headway and a brand new version of WordPress here. I have already installed it, as you could see. What I wanted to talk about really was the options panel to start with. You can obviously enter your license key here, but I'm not 100% sure right now. As of Headway 4.05, you cannot get a automatic update. So I know that there's issues with Headway and they're trying to fix out a whole load of bugs. So to be on the safe side, they've said to you not to, well, they're not really pushing out automatic updates. You have to manually update the site, and you can do that via FTP. So literally just log in via FTP, go to your uploads folder, go to themes, and replace the new Headway 4 point whatever it is with the old 4 point whatever it is, okay, and that should help. Now, in terms of what has changed in the options panel, some people may or may have not have known this, but you can now activate and deactivate features that you may know that you use for your projects or you don't use for your projects. And you've also got the search engine optimization section, which was taken out in 3.8 something, I'm not quite sure. And now it's been replaced, so you can either activate or deactivate. So if I deactivate that here, press save changes, there we go, there it's gone. Okay, so as you can see, the search engine optimization part is gone. If I refresh, let's try this again, it's now back. Okay, so now let's head straight into Headway so we can have a look at the changes and what's going on here. So here we have Headway, it's all in one screen, and we have two different modes even though it's in one screen. If we look over here, we have this kind of grid kind of looking layout button stuff thing, I don't know what you want to call it. This is what we call the layout editor. So in this version, or in this setting, we are able to add wrappers, add blocks, change the size of our grids and stuff like that. Then we have another button underneath, which is the design button, and when we design editor, when we click on that, you can see that this section over here changes automatically. So we have now got new ways of adding wrappers to our block. We have to make sure that we are in the layout editor, and what we would do is press this button over here, which is the plus sign, to add either presets or blank wrappers, which is super cool. So we have got a fluid width preset or a fixed width preset, okay? And with these we can literally just drag them out and it would draw us out a pre-made wrapper with blocks and stuff in there. So if I press save now and I view this in the site, you can see we have our blocks laid in there. Currently, as of version 4.0.5, you are unable to add a wrapper and then change it to either a fluid wrapper or full width or whatever, like what we used to do before, but they are in talks about fixing that for the next version, so don't worry if you notice that you can't do that as of yet. So in order to get to your wrapper options, you would literally just click on the wrapper, and here you would press on this cog, and that would bring you the options for that particular wrapper. So if I want to make it sticky, I can do. There's options of the mirroring and config and the responsive options, just like there was before. If I want to delete this wrapper, I click on this trash can, OK it, and now it's gone. Okay, so let's say I'm going to add a blank wrapper. I'm going to add that in there, and as you can see, we don't really have that much real estate because we've got like this sidebar sticking out here. But if we press tab on our keyboard or we toggle the sidebar here, you can see that we now have ample amount of space for us to work with. Okay, so here is our wrapper, and as usual, what we would do is drag out sections uh, of our website. So I've just dragged out this block here and I want to change that to a header. So now we have the option to type in header, or if we don't know the name, we could just scroll down and find whatever we need, select that, and now that block is a header block. Okay, the great thing is we are able to resize this block however we see fit. Okay, and we also have the opportunity to move this header block wherever we want it. So if I want it to go there and I press save, I view the site, it's going to be placed wherever I put it. Now you might be like, well, duh, that is how it's supposed to be. Well, the problem is that when we had Headway before, if we drew out a block here, it would always go to the top of the wrapper. And if I drew out another, let's say I drew out another header block here, and I move this slightly down and I press save. Now what would originally happen is that these two blocks would be like that, okay, or it may be like that. Okay, but now wherever I place another block next to it, it's going to obey where I put it. Okay, so even if I wanted to do it halfway and I press save, if we go over to here, it's still going to only show me exactly where I put the wrapper or I put the block. Now, if you've been using Headway before, then you're possibly sitting in your chair thanking God right now. But if you've never used Headway, then you probably don't know what I'm talking about and why this is actually relevant. So never mind. Let's move on. So let's get rid of this block and let's have a look at the options for this block. Let me right click. Oh, the options have actually gone. So where are the options in order for me to update this block? So what we can do is actually all in the sidebar that we toggled before. So I can tab key or I can toggle the sidebar down here, and now you would see that we have got the options to edit this particular block. The same like if I added a content block, for instance, you will see all the options for the content block are now here. Okay, so if I have a look here, I can edit the meta and everything like that. And I kind of think it looks really good there. It looks so much more better. It gives us a bit more space for us to do whatever we need to do. So if you ever get lost and you're trying to figure out where the options panel is now that you've right clicked and you're trying to find it, it will be in the sidebar. Okay, so let me just delete these two blocks out of the way, and I'm going to talk about one block in particular that has had a bit of a revamp to that, and that is the menu block. So I'm just going to drag that out and I'm going to type in navigation, and here we have our navigation block. Now what has been updated to this is the fact that we can now align our menu items however we see fit. Okay, we wasn't able to do that before, and not like that really caused problems for anybody, but it just gives us a bit more control over how our design is. Now for those veterans of Headway that still look at this canvas and think to themselves, oh, it doesn't quite feel, you know, you're still trying to get used to the look and feel of it, then what you could do is toggle the wireframe version, and that kind of brings us back to how the old version of Headway used to look like, and it makes us focus more on the layout and how it's constructed rather than the actual design. So sometimes I prefer to have that on rather than off. Okay, so one of the other new things that have happened to this particular block is the fact that we now have a responsive navigation. Yes, that's right. We do not have that horrible, well, we we can still use that input at that drop down menu that we had before, but now Headway has given the opportunity for us to have a slide out type of menu or a vertical drop down type of menu when it goes to responsive, like if it goes to a mobile or a tablet form. Now, the way that we could do that is we can adjust these settings here, and we can also adjust when the break is going to happen. So if I want it to happen at 885 pixels, I could do that as well. So if I press save here, if I come here and refresh it, now when I change the screen, you can see here we now have a slide out navigation. Okay. Currently, there is only two there's three different ways that we can make this menu responsive, and that is horizontal slide out, basic select, or the vertical menu. Okay, so I would definitely say play around with these items or these options when you can. Also, before you was able to see me basically move the side of my browser screen to show you the responsive settings. So when I was doing this, you could see that the menu item kind of clicked into place there. But Headway now gives you the opportunity to look at these different views using these three buttons at the top. So we got the desktop, the tablet, and the smartphone. So if I click on smartphone, you could also see that the changes have taken place as well. Now these are just previews. You cannot add blocks, you cannot style blocks, you cannot do anything really in these previews. And if you are able to, they are not going to save per preview. So for instance, if I was able to add a block here, as of yet, or I was to style this block, it doesn't mean that I'm styling this block for the smart view, or I'm styling this block for the tablet view. It just literally is a view, so you can't really do anything within these views. Okay, so let's start making this look more like a website. I'm going to drag this wrapper down. I'm going to click on the cog, and I'm going to call this my header wrapper. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to add a header. Okay. I'm going to add another wrapper. I'm going to add a content block in here. And I think I'm going to add a widget block as well. Let's just move this out of the way a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Widget area. Let me add another wrapper at the bottom. And this is going to be my footer. Okay, so let's press save and view the site in the browser. This is what this site looks like currently. So let's talk about designing or styling this section of the site. Now what I personally like to do is make sure that all of my wrappers are named. So let's make sure that we go in here. I'm going to call this homepage content, and let's close this, open this up, and we're going to call this the footer. Okay. So in order to style this, it's pretty easy. As I said before, we are in the layout editor, and now we need to go to the design editor. So we'll click on this paintbrush here, and this leads us straight into the design editor. The screen hasn't changed, but this sidebar has changed in terms of what it could do. So in order to make a styling or do any type of styling to any of the blocks or wrappers on the page, what we could do is click on an element. So here we've got the title, the header title. We click on that. As you can see, the left hand bar or the right hand bar changes, and we can make adjustments to this particular element by clicking on any of these drop downs here. So if I want to change the color, I could do so. The colors are changed immediately. If I want to change the size, I could do so as well. If I want to change the weight, I can do so. So as you can see, you can click on any of these settings and you can make any changes in real time. Now, this editor is not as intuitive as the original Headway 3.2 version. And the reason why I say that is because I'm so used to using it. But it doesn't mean that you can't get used to this version and how it does its thing as well. And in some ways, it's actually made things a lot more easier. I really, really, really love the design editor uh, in this version than I do in the previous versions, but I just don't think it's that user friendly. So hopefully this video is going to talk you through how everything kind of works. So for instance, I have a widget title here. Right now, if I add another widget, so I'm going to go back into the layout editor. I'm going to add another widget here. Let's move this down. Let's press save. Now, in order for me to make a change to this widget title, and it's also going to make a change to this widget title, in fact, I want it to make a change to all the widget titles on my website. I can do that because basically when I click here, it's only going to highlight this title, but if I right click, I can click where it says edit elements like this, and now you can see both of these titles are highlighted, and I can make a change here as to however I feel it to be. Okay, so say if we wanted to make a change to the wrapper, we wanted to add a different color to the background of the wrapper. Now when you click on the actual grid itself, what you would see is that it would automatically select the grid container, but we don't want the grid container, we want the wrapper. So what we could do is we can right click and go to where it says parents and click wrapper in the option panel here. Now as you can see, it's changed to wrapper. I can edit this element and I can change the background to whatever I feel it to be as well. Okay, so there are other ways that you can change things in bulk. For instance, if I have a look, if I just tab this sidebar out the way, you could see we have the wrapper and we have our background, which is some odd grey colour, but all of our wrappers have like this shadow, this box shadow which is around it, and it all has this 30 pixel margin from top to bottom, so we can change these as well. So there are multiple ways we could do this. We can right click and click on where it says edit elements like this. Sorry, it's a bit difficult to say when you have a cold. And if I click on tab, you can see here now it says wrapper unnamed. If I click on this little code brackets icon here, you could see that we are actually only editing all the wrappers, and the reason why we can determine that is because it says dot wrapper and it doesn't have, like for instance, if I just click on this wrapper, you could see it's got some random letters after it. So if I click on right click, edit elements like this, you can see here that we are only editing the all of the wrappers on the page, or all of the wrappers on our site. Okay, but there is also another way that we can select this. So if I click on styles and I press Control and F or Command and F on my keyboard and I have a look for the word wrapper, we can also edit it here. Okay, so if I click on that, it brings us to the wrapper mode here. So I'm going to scroll down where it says margin and I'm going to take out that margin there and that margin there. So now if we have a look at our site, there is no spacing in between the wrappers. Okay, so let me just save that and I'm going to refresh the page because as you can see there's some weird stuff happening with the grid. Okay, so you can also tell that the background is also not the right color. So now I've refreshed the page. What's happened is it's gone straight back into layout editor. I want to go back into the design editor because I want to change the color of the background. So I'm going to click on design editor, move that tab out the way, and just hover over this section. You can see it says body. I'm going to click on that, click back on a tab, and I can choose that to be white. Now you can see it's white everywhere. And now it's white everywhere. You could also see that we still got this box shadow. So I want to edit that as well. So let's click on the wrapper, edit elements like this, and click on box shadow here, and we can get rid of that there. So let's press save, and you can see now we no longer have the box shadow. Now this area is pretty much good for a lot of things. When I first saw this, I was like, what the hell is this? Why is this useful? I really don't know any need for it, but it is actually quite useful in terms of if you are looking for styling for a particular thing, then I would say having a scan through this. For instance, if I wanted to have a look at the navigation, I can just put in those quick words there and have a look and see how these navigation, like for instance the loop navigation, previous and post, previous and next. So when we have a content block and it has the previous post or the next post, you can have a look at the styling of that here. So this is pretty easy. Once you figured out why this function or this section here called styles might be useful for you, I think you'll be using it more and more. Now, in terms of the Navigator, this is like a simplified version of styles. So the Navigator basically looks at all of the elements which are on your page and lists them down here. So if I click, let's say if I look at the let's look at the navigation here. You can see we've got like a drop down box here, block item, menu container, and we have our menu items here. You see? And we have a menu item link here as well, so I could possibly change the color of that also. Let's click back on the navigator. We also have an option here for global elements. So for instance, if we want to change on every single block that we have, there is usually a 10 pixel margin at the bottom, so I can get rid of that. Okay, if I wanted to, or if I wanted to add a 10 pixel margin at the top as well as the bottom, I can do that as well. Okay, let's have a look. If we click on the hyperlink here, if I go down here, you could see that this is the in this tree it shows us exactly where this is. So the hyperlink is under the title tag, which is under the header tag. Okay, one of the things that I really like when I think about it now, one of the things I like about the new editor in Headway is the fact that if you do not know CSS, if you do not know HTML, this thing is going to teach you how HTML and CSS works, okay? So definitely have a look at these sections, definitely get to grips and try to understand what each of these sections are, because once you click on them, it immediately brings you into the editor, which allows you to style everything as well. Another reason why I say that this CSS editor in Headway 4.0, even though it may seem confusing, even though you may be tearing your hair out being a seasoned Headway user, it is good for those who are wanting to learn CSS or simply are resistant about learning CSS, because this thing is going to teach you CSS, okay? The reason why I say that as well is because if you click on this icon here, this shows you all the CSS for your site. So if I just scroll down here, now I did some updates to the widget title before. So this shows you the updates that I've made. So here we have the background color. You can see we've got widget here, widget title, widget title. Here I've added the background color. Here I've added padding. And here where it says color, which is usually related to the color of the text, you can see that we've got FFFFF, which is white. And what I'm going to show you here is pretty amazing. So if I delete this color here, look what happens. The changes are immediate. So say if I decide now I want to use this as blue, okay, I'm going to tab that in. If I close this off, and I select this color here, look what happens in the editor. It actually changes it to blue. So for those of you that really like writing in CSS, any CSS writing that you do within the CSS editor here gets reflected in the CSS editor here. Okay, so now we've managed to figure out how to add blocks, how to add wrappers, how to style stuff, in bulk. Let's talk about cloning. So you've created your homepage and now you want to create a different look for how your posts are going to appear on your site. What we do is click over to single and post and we can edit that there. So let's click edit and actually let's save this and let's click on edit. And as you can see here, we have a blank wrapper now, or a blank canvas. So here we can show the wrappers panel, or we can clone an existing layout. So I'm going to click here to clone existing layout, and I'm going to clone that layout here. So as you can see, if I press save and I have a look, here we have our blog post and we've got our widgets and everything else like that. Now let me go back into the layout editor, because currently you will see that this wrapper is mirrored, and this is exactly what we want. We want our headers and our footers to always be mirrored, because these are the areas of our website that hardly ever change. It's always pretty much the same. The only time content sort of changes is here in this wrapper as well. But you know, we can delete this wrapper. I may not want a red background for my posts and everything. I might want a clear white one. So I'm going to add a container here and I'm going to drop that in the middle, and I'm going to add a content block here. Okay, so now let me press save, come back here and refresh, and now I've got a totally different layout for my blog piece. Now if I click here where it says clone layout, you can also see that now this area is populated, and we can choose the different layouts here if we want to. Now if I wanted to clone a block, I can drag that out, choose the content block, and here where it says config, I can mirror the content block which is on the original blog post on the blog page. Okay, the same with the widget. So let me add a widget here. You can see now the widget has the same styling as the original one, because I chose for all of my backgrounds to have this color on the widget title. But I can also mirror the block as well. Okay, I would recommend definitely mirroring widgets which all have the same widgets inside them. Okay, it makes no sense you making multiple widgets and putting the same widgets in them. It just doesn't make any sense. So definitely I would recommend mimicking this block. So why would I do this rather than clone a whole layout? Well, because I want to add different options to this wrapper, okay? Or I might want to add different options to any block. So for instance, I may not want this block to be mirrored. You know, I want to add a thing now where this particular widget on all of my pages have a background color. Okay, so we could change that. Let's refresh. So you can see it's got this background color, but if I pick on home, you can see these don't. Okay. So that is really the ins and outs. I can't really think of anything else in terms of working your way around Headway 4.0. Now, there are some bugs, so it's not going to be as fluid as you see it being in the video. Like for instance, I had issues with adding the widget title and adding the background to the widget title. I noticed that I was able to edit one at one point, but then I couldn't edit the text to be a certain color for all of them at one point, and that was just a bug within Headway that I had to sort of manage. I managed to figure it out. Now this tutorial is really just a walkthrough. I want to in the future do a more detailed tutorial about what everything does, but right now, because of the bugs which are in it, I do not feel comfortable doing that. So I'm waiting for the newer version to come out in order for me to start pushing out more tutorials in regards to how everything works in a much more intricate setting rather than the setting that I'm kind of building right now. So if you are lost, if there's anything that you need help in, please either leave a comment below, leave a comment in my Facebook group. Let me show you my Facebook group real quick. Where is my Facebook group? Let's have a look. Facebook, here we go. So come over to Headway Themes users, leave a comment there if you need to, or you can go into the community forum, which might be a little bit better because at least they'll be able to track any bugs which are happening. But from what I know, I think they know most of the bugs. I think they're going to try and figure it out and get this ready, so then at least we can have maybe a 4.1 by the end of next week or something like that, which would be a much more stable version. But I would personally suggest not to start building your next project with it right now. It's to probably wait until it gets more stable before you start building out any projects for your clients. Just use Headway 4.0 as a staging ground at the moment. I'm pretty sure that they're aware that this is the case because they've still left Headway 3.8 up. So if you're having issues, just work on 3.8 for now, and then when it gets to a much stable version of Headway 4. Whatever, then um, I'll be here to be posting out tutorials, and some of the other guys on YouTube as well. They're going to be posting up tutorials as well. So I hope this helps. Like I said, any questions, email me, leave a message below, contact us in the support group, contact us on Slack. We are all over the place. Just find us and somebody will be there to help. And everything I hope everything makes sense. And I will see you on the other side. Bye.